Boo-doo-doo-doo-doo. All right. Live? Huh. Wait, it's showing up that it's live. There it is. Cool. All right. Let's minimize that. Blurs. All right, everyone. Be patient with me just for a second. I gotta make sure I share this. All right. Hopefully this works. All right. I'm going to start in 1 second. All right, everybody. We'll just go ahead and get started. Good morning, good evening, whatever time it is you're watching. Hello. It is the Blurs Boys, but this time it's just Blake by himself. We're going through a little transition period, so there will be, I guess, some more unique videos, and I think me, Hayden, and Aaron will all make appearances, but just lives are busy, you know, and so we're going to have to do some more creative stuff. And so we thought it'd be fun tonight to do a little NFL recap. We'll talk about the Falcons, look at week one, see the impacts around the league. I know the Falcons, there are 3 teams that went undefeated or won their game in this first week. So there's a little bit of pressure for the Falcons to keep winning, and we'll talk about that. But first, I think we should look at week one. Man, I'm hearing a lot of mixed things. A lot of people are complaining. Desmond Ridder threw for 115 yards only. He was 15 for 18. He had 22 dropbacks, but there were 4 sacks, which is why there's only 18 throws, including a throw completion to himself for -6 yards. So it's really 14 for 18 for 121. I don't know if that makes it much better, but definitely doesn't make it worse. But let's start to break it down. Really, we have Steam shutting. Let me get that out of here. All right. So really, when you watch this game, for me personally, I was looking to see, 1, how good our defense is. 2, I was looking to see, did we improve as an offense? Because last year, I don't know, I just felt like there were so many games last year, and we'll pull up 22 Falcons schedule, where the Falcons were definitely in games all the way till the end, but as you were getting towards the fourth quarter, they tend to trail off. So if we look at last season, our first game, I remember it like it was yesterday. This was a game where we were leading the game for most of the part. We looked like a brand new team. Marcus Mariota looked like he may be able to do some things for us. Cordell Patterson looked like the Swiss Army knife that he is. But as you remember, if you recall last year, there were a lot of times where we did not play 4 quarters. I I think it had a lot to do with talent. I think we talked about that a lot. We just didn't have the playmakers to score touchdowns at the end. We didn't have the veteran leadership to really win those gritty, close games. We lost a lot of one-possession games last year. If you look at our schedule, I mean, including the first, I want to say in the first 3 games, I know we were 2-2, but 4 of them were one-possession games, and we were just on the other side of it. I mean, we lost to the Bucs, a one-possession game. Panthers later on, Chargers one-possession game. We lose to the Commanders in a one-possession game. If you look at all of our losses besides, I think, just the Bengals loss, and this Panthers loss was 10. That was a bad loss. But all of our losses last year were one possession. Even this Ravens loss, you could argue it's one possession, it's 8 points, 1 touchdown, and a 2-point conversion. So a lot of times we didn't play full 4 quarters. What I was proud of in this first game of the season was it was a full 4 quarters. You saw it wasn't pretty, and it's not what we wanted to see, especially Desmond Ridder. I think a lot of us expected more. I don't know if we should have expected more. It's only his 5th start. And really, like, we didn't give enough credit to the Panthers beforehand. But, man, that defensive line is, I mean, it's nothing to joke about. They had some good players on the defensive line. And Caleb McGarry, as much as I really enjoy the contract we gave him, especially because if it doesn't work out, it's a really easy contract to move on from. It's I think it's pretty front-loaded. But, man, he was getting his butt whooped for the whole first half, which is why Arthur Smith, you saw, and excuse me, I will be taking some bites to eat while I do this. You saw Arthur Smith change the play calling, especially in the second half. Are the Falcons? Why is this like cut off? Hold up, Clem, I'm trying to read your comment here. Oh. Let me pull up. For some reason, I can't really see it. Hold up. Are the Falcons and Vikings switching luck on the one possession games? Well, I mean, I had this conversation with you. That's a good question, Clem. I had this conversation with you in the preseason because I think you picked the Vikings to be your Super Bowl favorites. And if you look at 2022 season 1, Vikings were the only team with a positive record that had a negative point differential, which is like absurd. I'm pretty sure. 2022 NFL point differential. I'm pretty sure they had a negative one. Vikings. Yes, -3. Like, that's absurd. I guess the Dolphins did too, -2. Jets had -. I mean, you had some other people, but still, Vikings, who were like 13-4 or something ridiculous, had a -2 point differential in the season. They were the king of the one possession wins. I don't know if the Falcons and them switch places. I think the Falcons may have some more wins like this where when the Falcons play bad teams, they beat them pretty badly. And I think if you look at the 2021 Falcons, this is a perfect example of a bad team. They lost games against good teams by a lot. I mean, I'll never forget. I think where is it? That's not the wrong season. We had the loss to the Cowboys 43-3. We lost to the Patriots 25-0 the following week. We lost Buccaneers by 2 possessions. Anytime we played a good team, I felt like Arthur Smith's first season, we were losing. I mean, we lost the first week 48-25. The score was a lot further away than the game actually felt. Eagles 32-6. They were a good team that year and made the playoffs. Like, good teams are supposed to beat bad teams. I know it's the NFL. There's a lot of parity. You will get these one possession games. It's going to happen. Like, we're going to have one possession games this week. And I think this weekend's the Packers is a perfect example of a game that will probably come down to a one possession game. But to answer your question, Clem, I don't think we switch places with the Vikings. I think the Falcons will handle some of these bad teams and win by, let's say, 10 points or 2 possession, I think. Now, I do think you have to win close games. That's the difference in good teams and bad teams. And I do think in that point, we do win a lot of these games that we lost last year. I think the Falcons lost the most one possession games last year. And we have 1, 2, that's not a loss. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 one possession losses. I mean, that's a lot. That's 8 games you could have won. I mean, for the Vikings, that's 8 games they did win. So man, that's crazy to think about. But yeah, so we had 10 losses. Of our 10 losses, 8 of them were one possession, and a lot of them were less than a touchdown. 3 points, 1 point, 2 points. So I mean, the Falcons left a lot of meat on the bones last year, for sure. The exciting part this year is, I think, as a unit, it's a much more complete team. And like as we were nailing into this Panthers game, like look at the team stats. I know Panthers had more offensive yards than us, and I know a lot of Falcons fans have expectations for this offense to be really good. We do too. On Blurs, we've said it several times, though, this is going to be a team that as the season goes on, we get better. I expected us to beat the Panthers. Did I expect us to win by 14? No. Did I expect us to hold them to 10 points? No. I mean, we're historically bad against rookie quarterbacks. We're historically bad when the team's supposed to win. Like, I know we were talking about Bryce Young is our first pick of the draft quarterbacks were like 0-1-13. Or 0-13-1, one tie, and then 13 losses in their season opener. And I thought the Falcons, like, just knowing our luck, we'd be the team that that breaks that curse and lets them get a win, but we didn't. I know the stats are not great, but it's the fact that our defense held up so well, and I think it translates over, like, especially to, like we were talking about earlier, like, the second half was a turning point. We outscored them 17-3 in the second half. I mean, Arthur Smith completely changed his play calling. We went away from trying to pass a ton. We went away from running right at Brian Burns. We did a lot of movement on the line, and it really helped out the Falcons. I mean, we also established the edge too with Tyler Algier. We established punishing them. I love the 1-2 punch in Algier and Bijan Robinson. I do believe it's the best backfield in the NFL. I don't think it's close. I don't even think it's close. I heard someone on the radio though on my way home today talking about how, like, why are we trying to take away Algier's touch? And it's like, one, like, they're just different players. Like, anytime Bijan touches the ball, he could score a touchdown. Like, that's what we were missing last year. We were missing a player, and Kyle Pitts is that way. But in order to get Kyle Pitts that way, you have to have someone to throw it to him. And he was hurt. Also, he was hurt last year. Like, I think a lot of those one-possession games might change at the end of the season if we had Kyle Pitts. There wasn't much for Ritter to throw to in those last 4 weeks. I know we were 2-2 in them, but it's the truth. But if you look at explosiveness, the Falcons are the definition of it. I just think we have to give them some time. I think what we're expecting out of Ritter, I don't think we're going to have Ritter start throwing 300 yards in a game. I think what we should hope for Ritter is these 225-yard passing games. Like, I think 225 yards a game, that'd be perfect, especially if you're running 150. Dalvin and Breece, come on. Dalvin's washed, man. I mean, wait, why is that up? Okay, I see. No, man. Dalvin is washed compared to Algier and Bijan. I mean, I'm gonna be honest with you. I think Bijan's better than Breece Hall, just one for one. I think Bijan's more of a threat out of the backfield, and the catching game for sure. And then at this point in their careers, I would take Tyler Algier over Dalvin Cook. And that's not to disrespect Dalvin Cook at all and the greatness that he has been. But, I mean, you saw it in the Jets-Bills game over the weekend. Dalvin Cook's just not what Breece Hall is. Anytime Breece touches the ball, it could be a touchdown. I feel like the same way with Bijan. But if you look at Dalvin Cook's analytics, and especially like his yards per carry and what he's done over the last couple of years, it's gotten worse each year. And, like, that's why the Vikings were okay with letting him go. He wasn't worth the price. CMC and Mitchell, talent, not health. I mean, CMC, that's a good point, Knox, in the chat. Shout out, Knox. I think you're right on the sense that, like, CMC is higher than the rest of them. But when you're comparing them to, let's say, what am I trying to say? If you're comparing CMC and Mitchell to Bijan and Algier, like, together, I still think the sum of the whole is greater than the individual parts. Like, I don't know. I just think that would be my ideal 1-2 punch. You're probably right. CMC's your thought of CMC being further along than Bijan, and so I'll agree with that. But I think by the end of the year, I would say Tyler and Bijan are number one. And right now, I think you could argue they're number one, but it's maybe just two. But I do think they're ahead of Dalvin and Breece, only just because Dalvin's just on that. I mean, as soon as you get that last half, like, over the hump as a running back, you start to really lose what separates you. And, I mean, what happens is when you carry the ball 200 times or touch the ball 200 times a year, like, it's going to rack up. That's for sure. Back to the Panthers-Falcons game, I was talking about Desmond Ritter. I expect him to throw double this against the Packers. Like, not 115 yards. I expect him to be throwing maybe 250 yards. But, like, that's probably his max. Like, maybe he has some great games against porous defenses and Kyle Pitts. And because the thing is, he could have a game where he throws 300 yards because a screen goes 80 yards and a Kyle Pitts over the top goes 60 yards, and then Drake London gets a 30-yard catch here and a 30-yard. Like, he could easily get to 300 yards, and I think it'll happen this season. But I don't think that will be the average. And it doesn't need to be the average. I mean, I think Arthur Smith's going to game plan based on who he's playing against, and there's going to be different strats for different teams. And some of the teams you're going to want to just run and control the clock because you don't want to get in a shootout. We're not going to – where Desmond Ritter's at in his career – right now, we're not winning shootouts. And I don't know if he ever becomes a shootout quarterback. It's too early for me to tell. I mean, he's no Matt Ryan right off the rip, but you knew that when he's going to be a third-round pick, it's going to take a little while for him to develop. But what you do like, what you saw in Desmond Ridder, is he took care of the ball. I mean, that's compare why we won against the Panthers, because Bryce Young threw 2 interceptions and Desmond Ridder threw 0. Also, I would say Bryce Young hit 3 more yards, because if you look at what Panthers were doing compared to what the Falcons were doing, is they were doing a lot of quick, easy routes on the sides. They were doing a lot of go routes and throwing it out. They threw it out of bounds a ton. Like, look at Bryce Young's stats, 20 for 38. He almost like 50% completion percentage, just a little above. So that's why we weren't getting as many sacks as I would have liked. I wish we would have had more than 2. But we still, when it mattered the most, we were putting pressure on him. And that was a lot, especially in the fourth quarter, a lot of pressure. And like, as you saw, like, we called a very efficient game. Desmond Ridder is going to be a field general. His job is going to be to not lose these games. And that's something that Marcus Mariota couldn't do last year. And I think it's a big upgrade over him, even if the numbers aren't as good, like, statistically, if you're looking at just statistics. But we're trying to compare what's more beneficial for this team and how do we win more games. I mean, Desmond Ridder and controlling the ball is super important. Being able to do, and Desmond Ridder made the plays when it mattered. Like that Kyle Pitts throw in the fourth quarter, like the 30-yard reception, got us right down on the 10. It was a passing interference, and Kyle still called it. Like, that's a big play. That's a big throw. Like, those are throws you got to make. Are there things they need to clean up? Absolutely. Was there spacing issues on routes? Absolutely. I also don't want to we don't want to forget the fact that this was week 1. He didn't play as much as he probably should have in the preseason. I mean, some of that, though, look at Pittsburgh Steelers. They played their starters against us for like a whole half, and they go out and get smoked week 1 against the 49ers, where we barely play our starters at all. And I mean, it showed. It definitely showed. But Arthur Smith knew we were playing the Panthers week 1. He knew it'd be a little easier, especially on their offensive side. I think Burns gave us more problems than we thought we would. Lindstrom had a game that I think he's going to want to build back from. So I love about this team is I think we have a lot of players who are going to want to improve in their last week and aren't going to be like, well, nah, I mean, that's it. That's what we are. So that's exciting to me. But yeah, I would say Mac Hollins, how awesome was he? Like, it sucks to see Drake London with a 0 for 0. I do think Drake London probably breaks 1,000 yards this year. I just think we got to be patient. There's going to be some growing pains with Desmond Ridder. There's going to be growing pains with this offense. The defense looked legit. I think if we want to start to look ahead a little bit to this next week, week 2, there's a lot of Green Bay fans who think Green Bay's going to smoke Falcons. And I'll be honest, Green Bay looked great in their first game. But who are they playing? The Bears, who, for some reason, like the Bears, for a lot of people, have been like this darling. Oh, wait, sorry. I need to reach out real quick. Game managers work in college. I don't see it working in the NFL. You can make the playoffs with a good game manager, but you have to be able to a different level to win in the playoffs. But I do hope Desmond can improve and become that kind of guy. I mean, I agree with that, Knox. And I think the Falcons and Art Smith know this, based on the team we have this year and based on the question mark at quarterback, that we're probably not a Super Bowl contender this year anyways. We probably are a quarterback away. And, I mean, we need some more depth in a couple places for sure. Some younger edge rushers for sure. But I do think he maybe could become that guy. I mean, he could. What I like about Desmond Ridder is he says the right things. He does seem like a good leader, and he seems like a good guy. And you saw him in Cincinnati lead teams to great success, and I think if we can just give him the patience, he could get there. But if he doesn't get there and he can be a bridge gap game manager while Arthur and Terry are trying to instill a winning culture here, and we just have winning seasons, like, that's important. Like, it's been 5 years since we've had a winning season. I think sometimes we get too lost in like Super Bowl or bust, or I'm not saying you are doing this, Knox, but people get lost in Super Bowls. But like, personally, as a fan, I would rather have sustained success where, like, look at the Patriots. I mean, I know they won a ton of Super Bowls, but like, look at the Patriots, look at the Seahawks, look at the Ravens, look at the Steelers, look at these teams that every year they're competitive. They might not win every year, but they're competitive every year, and that's way more entertaining as a fan. Like, to know that every year you can look forward to football season. I mean, if you take the Bucks for example, they were irrelevant. Tom Brady comes, they win a Super Bowl, and then they were irrelevant again. Like, I don't want that for the Falcons. I want sustained success. And I think regardless of what Desmond's peak is, that he's enough to get us to where we can have a winning season. And we'll see what happens from there. I still, like I said, it's too early to tell what all he's capable of. But back to the Packers real quick. I don't know why people thought the Bears were going to be an improved team this year. Their offensive line sucks. Fields I like Fields' talent. His processing is very slow, very slow. And you got to be quick in this league, especially with the pass rush a lot of these teams have. I think Green Bay just took advantage of a bad Bears team. And I'm not saying that we didn't take advantage of a bad Panthers team, because we did. But I think the Panthers have a better D-line than what the Bears do, for sure. And I also think that a big thing that a lot of people aren't realizing is Trent Dilfer won a Super Bowl. That's true. It was a different era, though. It was a different era that Trent Dilfer won. I mean, used to, you could be a quarterback and you could throw 150 yards and, like, that's considered a good game. It's not that way anymore, but that used to be, like, a good game. I will say, though, Aaron Jones and Christian Watson might both be out this week, which is huge. Huge for our Falcons. You talk about a player that'd be hard for us to cover. It's Aaron Jones coming out of the backfield, especially if Troy Anderson, who's in concussion protocol right now, ends up missing time. It'd be so hard for us to play against them that way. And Christian Watson, like, he's their best receiver. Ball is ball. Ball is ball. And I think Art Smith thinks that same thing, is that ball is ball, and that when you play the Falcons, you better be ready for 60 minutes of physical football, because that's what it's going to be. 60 minutes of physical football on both sides, which I love to say. Like, I think the Dirty Bird defense may be back. Dub season. I like Doubs. I don't know how to say his name. I like him a lot. I still think Christian Watson's the better receiver. It'll be one of those things as the season goes on. When he's healthy, he'll prove that. But for the Falcons right now, I'm super glad he might miss the game. And I think that could be a reason why the Falcons win. I also expect the Falcons offense to be much better than it was against the Panthers. Much better. So I really do think this Packers-Falcons game is going to be pretty close, actually. I think one possession game. And I think I picked the Packers to originally win this game against us. But knowing injuries now, I think there's a good chance the Falcons could come away with the win here. And it's true, Clem. I mean, health's everything. And that's why football, you just never know, and you can't count anything before. You can't count your eggs before your chicken. Can't count your chickens before the eggs hatch, because literally in football, it's so dependent on injuries. Another reason why I like Bijan with Tyler Algier, if one goes down, we still have the other, which wouldn't be ideal, but man, if we didn't have both, it would be less ideal for sure. So if we're looking at this week, I don't know how the chat feels about this. I appreciate y'all heard a live chat, but right now, if Aaron Jones and Christian Watson are out, I'm going Falcons, and I think that's a fine pick. I think the money line right now is like -1 for the Packers, which basically means, like, Vegas doesn't know it's a pick 'em game. Which is one of the hardest lines to bet on for sure, and this is not financial advice at all, so don't take it as that. But I definitely could see the Falcons coming away with a win here, which would be huge, because I definitely think the next 2 weeks we play other good teams, and so it's good to get your wins when you can. If we're looking around the league, let's look at the standings. This is something that I think is very important, is that we had 3 teams in our division win last week, and the Saints beat the Titans. Titans were one of those teams where people are like, are they going to be good? Are they not going to be good? What's the call here? I don't think the Titans are good. I just don't think the Titans are good. Their offensive line's horrible. I don't. If you have Derrick Henry in fantasy, trade him. I just don't see. Personally, that's what I would do. I would trade him. I don't see it working out. Maybe they end up trading Derrick Henry. I don't know. I have no idea. My favorite pick right now, my favorite trade thing that may happen, and probably won't, but I would like to happen was, and maybe Clem, tell me how you feel about this. What if Ryan Tannehill got traded from the Titans to the Jets? I think Tannehill's the guy could get him to the Super Bowl, honestly. Because, like you said, Trent Dilfer won a Super Bowl. If the team around him and the sum's greater than the parts, sum of the whole's greater than the parts, then I don't see why they couldn't. The Jets have they have a great roster. Quarterback's the biggest question mark. But looking down in the NFC South, Falcons are the only team to win by double digits. We had the Buccaneers upset the Vikings in Minnesota. So horrible loss for the Vikings. Huge win for the Buccaneers. I don't think this will translate to be like super successful season for the Buccaneers, but it does show that you can't just scratch this game as an easy dub. They have veterans. They have Baker Mayfield, who, as much crap as he gets, like he has had good years in the NFL. He's led a team in the playoffs before. He could do them again. Clem Jones in the chat saying it's Zach's team, let him cook. I think they're going to feed him to the Wolves this weekend in Dallas, and then they might look elsewhere. But don't get me wrong, he's looked much improved, and I had this conversation with you off air. I really do think Zach was not mentally prepared to play Monday night, and nor I don't think he should have been. Sorry. It was Aaron Rodgers' first game. Hell, Aaron Rodgers ran out of the tunnel with American flag. It was badass. So, I think it was a hard step to step in. He didn't lose the game. He really, I won't say outplayed Josh Allen. I think Josh Allen outplayed himself, but he beat Josh Allen. He beat the Bills. Like, that's incredible. Incredible. And the Saints, like I said, they beat the Titans 16-15. Titans a good defense. Saints have a good defense. It was a gritty win. I think they're going to be competitive games. I do think the NFC South is going to be competitive. I do think none of these teams are elite. But what I like about the Falcons compared to the Saints, compared to the Bucks, is that I think we are on the up and up. I really do believe that we're one of the rising NFC teams, similar to the Packers, similar to the Lions, similar to the Commanders, maybe. Like if they might be one of those other, like there's a couple teams with question marks. Like are they the next good teams in NFC? Or are they not? And I think you got to prove it this year. And I think the Falcons will. And I think that's something that we have an advantage over the Buccaneers, Saints, and the Panthers. I think the Saints just keep kicking the can down the road, and they're hoping to. I think the Saints hope make playoffs and go on a run, because eventually you got to pay the piper, and they're going to have to pay for all these players, and they can't just keep kicking the cap down and expecting it to work out for them. I just don't see it happening. We saw a young Rams team beat the Seahawks. Wow, that was incredible. 30-13. Like I still can't believe it. I thought the Seahawks were one of those teams that coming in the season, their offense would be electric. I thought this Rams team would be rebuilding, but it just shows you that Matthew Stafford, and like, I guess I haven't given enough credit to Matthew Stafford. Like, he elevates a team for sure. Like, I always compared him to Matt Ryan. I think I'm starting to think he's actually better than Matt Ryan. Like, at their peak, I think, I don't know. It's hard. It's close. It's very close. But I will say, like Matt Ryan, Matthew Stafford is an elevator, and he's definitely elevating his team's play. I don't think this Rams team can compete the whole season, but they might stick in the wild card hunt the whole time. How many active quarterbacks have won a Super Bowl? There's a real changing of the guard. Wow, that's a very good question. I mean, you have Stafford, Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, I don't think anyone on any of these teams have won a Super Bowl. And then we go to the AFC, Patrick Mahomes. Lamar did not. I almost said Lamar Jackson. Is that it? Is that it? Are there only 4 active quarterbacks? I mean, is Nick Foles, is he still in the league? Is that it? Could you look that up for me, Clem? That's a great question. Excuse me, great question. I'm looking back at the standings. I think the 49ers do win the NFC West. I think the Seahawks and the Rams are going to be competing for a wild card spot. Maybe they both make the wild card spot. It's a short list. Yeah, you're right. It is short. It's a very short list. Cowboys, Commanders, Eagles, Giants. This is another division that's going to be really tough to win. I think the Cowboys, and I'm being honest when I say this, I think the Cowboys are the best team in the NFC. And they're 1A and the 49ers are 1B. Those are my two top teams in the NFC. If I had to give a third team in the running here, Eagles. Eagles would be team 3. Their Eagles gave up 20 points to the Patriots, and Mac Jones threw for over 300 yards against them. I'm concerned about the Eagles' secondary. Their pass rush is elite. It'll always be elite, but I'm concerned about the secondary. And they had a cakewalk schedule last year, so I think there's going to be a little bit of regression this year. Not to say that they're going to be bad. I think they still make the playoffs, but I think the Cowboys win their division. NFC North, I think the Lions win that division. I think the Packers are going to be in the wild card hunt, and I think the Vikings and the Bears are being the odd ones looking out. And the Bears, bless the Bears' heart, they may be the worst team in the NFC again, which means Justin Fields' experiment did not work, and they're going to have to restart. And then in our division, I think the Panthers and the Falcons are two teams that will get better. More like every team gets better as the season goes on for the most part, but these teams that have these young players and these high utilization positions, they're the ones that will improve the most. And so that's why Falcons, Panthers are my ones that will improve the most in the NFC South. And I think the Falcons win our division. In the AFC, we have the Jets, Dolphins, Patriots, Bills. I know the Bills lost to the Jets. I still am picking them to win that division. Dolphins defense worries me, but the Dolphins and the Jets are my two favorites to come in the wild card. I had the Jets. I had the Dolphins pre-Aaron Rodgers injury. Afterwards, especially how credible that Dolphins attack is, maybe I'll move the Dolphins ahead of the Jets for the wild card. AFC West, I picked the Chargers to win this division. I know the Chiefs are still in this. I don't trust the Chiefs defense, which they played actually incredibly well against the Lions. I was actually very surprised. And I just think like Super Bowl hanger has to hit him. And that receiving core is awful. I was saying it before the game, and then the game really proved my point. Kadarius Toney, my God. So Chiefs, Chargers, I think those would be the two that come out of there. One will be a wild card, one in the playoffs, or one division winner. AFC North, picked the Ravens to win this. I picked the I picked the Bengals to be the AFC wild card out of this. But man, the Browns look great in that first game. I know the Bengals were coming off a injured Joe Burrow in the preseason, and I don't think the Bengals repeat that again. But 24-3 win in a gritty game over the Bengals. What an impressive win. So they'll definitely be there. They have the quarterback for it. Their defense finally looks like a legit defense, so that's the scary part for them. And then AFC South, easiest division in the AFC. I think it's the Jaguars, and I think they run away with it for sure. And no other team in that division should make the playoffs. So that's a little look around the league. I don't know. I just love football. Glad it's back. I think the biggest takeaway for week one is do not overreact to week one. Do not overreact to week one. Cowboys beat the Giants 40-0. Honestly, it's better when your team doesn't play as well in week one. You hope to get the win and not play as well because it's easier to see what you need to fix. Like for the Cowboys, man, when you come out of the game, you're like, all right, we need to improve where? Like it's so hard to tell because you won 40-0. And maybe that's just the team the Cowboys are this year and they don't need to improve anywhere. I don't believe that's the truth, but it could be. But it's a lot easier week one to realize where you need to improve if you don't play as well. And for the Falcons, luckily, we saw that in our offense. One last thing, though, before we cut it off here, we do have one we'll look at tonight's game, which is between the Eagles and the Vikings. I do believe this game will be a shootout. I believe the Eagles will win this game, and maybe even by more than one score. But I believe the Vikings will at least show their offense can put up points because I think the over-runner is 49-9. I don't know if they reach that, but I do believe Minnesota scores more than 20 points. So there's a lot of fantasy implications tonight, a lot of good players, so be tuned in. Start your guys. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I need to follow up on before I end this. Clem, you got any last points you'd like to make? I have Twitter up right now. Pukanaku status has changed from healthy to questionable. Rudro Raggy. Man, how incredible was he week one? And he's one of those guys, too, that I think could just lay a goose egg in week two, and everyone's going to be like, what the just happened? But he also is a guy who I could see being a stud. So, football is just so finicky. But man, I'm so glad it's back. Very glad it's back. I appreciate those who've tuned in tonight. Excited to watch Thursday Night Football. I managed to win in every single one of my leagues in the first week of fantasy football. So I used a lot of fantasy luck in week 1. So I'm very worried about week 2. Very worried. It's never good when, I don't know. I feel like it's like, I don't know. I'm not used to being in a lot of leagues. So it's I typically am a 1-man league, and now I'm doing 4 this year. So major jump. But yeah, we'll see what happens. I'll keep y'all posted as we go. Thank y'all for joining us on a different kind of episode this week. For normal Blurs listeners, we're gonna try to have a normal pod next week, at least 2 weeks. If we don't get a normal pod next week, it'll be one of these again. I might do it earlier in the week though, or I'll start a little bit earlier on Thursday. It was a hard day with work and other things that are going on today. But yeah, really appreciate everyone taking the time. We'll try to get this up on YouTube. Well, it's already on YouTube, but we'll get it up on wherever you listen to your podcasts tomorrow. I hope everyone has a good night or a happy Friday if you're listening to this tomorrow. And